Journalists Federation condemns refugee journalists detaining. Lae Port landowners strike deal with new operator. And Prime Minister previews common sense budget.
This is National EMTV News with Meriba Tulo.
A very good evening. Thank you for joining us for Monday's news. We begin our bulletin with the issue on Manus Island. Protests have taken place in Australia, calling for refugees on Manus to be evacuated immediately. This comes after the release of fresh footage from the camps on the island. Detainees say they've been forced to live in unsafe conditions.
This is life inside one of the new camps set up to replace the now closed Manus Island detention centre.
There is no electricity, so still construction.
Ezatullah Kakar was forcibly moved out of the detention centre by police on Friday and brought here with hundreds of others.
People are still homeless and looking for the rooms.
Unfinished, and refugee advocates say unsafe.
So this is our new life after 4.5 years in the new prison camp. Everybody is upset about future.
Across Australia, thousands of people are voicing outrage at the treatment of the asylum seekers.
I'm not sure if I could last there 1 week. Now stretch that over not 1 week, not 1 month, but 4.5 coming on 5 years, and that's what these men are facing.
We have an immediate solution. We bring them here to Australia while we find a permanent place for them to be relocated.
A minute's silence as a show of support. While speakers at today's rally are demanding the detainees be evacuated off Manus Island and brought to Australia, the Immigration Minister Peter Dutton has repeatedly said that won't be happening. But advocates aren't giving up.
Today that the struggle is not over. The struggle enters a new phase now, but it will continue.
Fighting words for those who remain.
Meanwhile, New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinta Ardern has dismissed claims by an Australian senator that New Zealand's offer to the 150 Manus refugees would be a backdoor way of smuggling people into Australia. Ardern has continued to put pressure on the government there to accept the offer, but she says it is still on the table.
I certainly know it's a genuine offer. The only way really for that issue to be resolved is via Australia, so it's a matter for them.
The International Federation of Journalists, an international body aimed at protecting journalists' rights, has condemned the arrest of an Iranian Kurdish journalist who is a refugee on Manus Island. IFJ says Behrouz Bukhani was arrested during a raid, with reports that officers were specifically looking for him. He was led away in handcuffs by 2 police officers. In a media statement, it said that if the arrest of Behrouz Bukhani was because of his work as a journalist, it is a blatant attack of press freedom and an attempt to silence a critical voice.
Behrouz Bukhani has been in the detention center on Manus Island since August 2013. IFJ says that Bukhani has been a main source of factual information about the conditions inside the Manus Island Detention Centre, and his reports been published in Australia and internationally. On Bukhani's Twitter account, he gives regular updates on the situation at the decommissioned Manus Centre and what is happening to asylum seekers who are refusing to move. On the 22nd of this month, he tweeted that he had been released and that he was handcuffed for more than 2 hours in a place behind the center, and that the police who arrested him yelled at him saying, "You are reporting against us." The IFJ in the media release said that journalists should never be stopped for doing their work. Earlier this year, he was shortlisted in the journalism category for the 2017 Index on Censorship Freedom of Expression Awards, and just 3 weeks ago, he was awarded the Amnesty International Australia Media Award for his journalism from Manus Island. Adelaide Sirox Kari, National EMTV News.
You're watching National EMTV News. We go for a break now. When we come back, the day's other top stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back to National MTV News. The deadline for SIM registration in the country may be extended from December the 31st to January the 23rd, 2018. The National Information and Communication Technology Authority says this is due to very slow implementation by mobile operators.
Since the NICTA Act was passed in August 2016, all telecommunication companies are required to register their customers. This means all SIM card holders in Papua New Guinea must register their SIM cards before December 31st, 2017. For the last 18 months, mobile companies have set up booths at selected parts in towns and cities for SIM registration. However, local authority responsible for the information and communication sector in PNG, NICTA, say the implementation by mobile operators is very slow.
Unfortunately, the work in trying to get everybody together is very slow, and I think whilst there's a lot of expectations, now that we have the cybercrime code bill in place, the enforcement side is lacking.
The SIM registration process is a step forward in PNG's ICT sector as PNG transitions into the digital world. Thus, NICTA is working with banking and educational institutions to help promote the registration of SIM cards. MTV News spoke to 25 mobile users in Port Moresby today.
Now today, if you want to do anything, you have to be identified. You will have to produce IDs and all of these things. So registering SIM card is very important.
Of the 25, 23 are yet to register their SIM cards. Most of these mobile users are market vendors.
All must run low, all the market, all the tables, all mama, all some of man Mary, all some move.
They claim they do not have time to register their SIM cards, despite it being an important thing to do. Most say they were not aware of the registration deadline and did not agree with registering their SIM.
Mipla market line SIM registration and South Mipla work or Mipla got something kind of banking or traveling or this kind about Mipla by worry too much to register.
And only few agreed with the government's law to register SIM cards.
There's been ample time that has been given out already, and there's a hefty penalty. And I will stand by my department to make sure that any mobile company that fails to register SIM will be penalized.
Minister responsible, Sam Basil, say there may be an extension of 1 month for the registration of SIM cards.
There are talks about extending it by 1 more month, but we are still assessing because we are coming towards the end of November. First week of December, there may be an announcement of only 1 month extension or it stays. But at the moment, please understand, it's 31st of December 2017.
Thakla Gunga, National MTV News.
Lae MP John Rosso and landowners of the Lae Port have managed to work out a lucrative deal with the government-appointed Filipino port operator ICTSI. Under a memorandum of agreement, landowners will have a 30% stake in the port operations, fully funded by the investor. The equipment owned by Lae Port Services will be bought by ICTSI, with the revenue used for reinvestment in other areas. Most of the workers will be absorbed into the new company. This comes after more than 6 years of protest and port disruptions.
Without revealing too much of the details of the agreement, both the Lae MP and the landowner company boss George Guare said the deal was the best they could come up with under the current circumstances. And the circumstances were that the government had already chosen the Filipino company ICTSI as the port operator of Lae, without the involvement of the Ahi and Labu landowners.
Because they were on the verge of shutting down the wharf.
Over the past month, John Rosso, as member for Lae, helped facilitate meetings between the government, the Filipino investor and the landowners.
New ports operators basically agreed to our demands in writing, and we've come to a consensus for that, and with the full agreement of the landowners. And I'm fairly happy with it. The decision was the landowner's final decision, but as long as they're happy, I'm happy.
So going forward for us now is basically ensuring that we continue on working with ICTSI so that we ensure there's a smooth transition.
Landowners finally settled on a 30% stake in the new venture, a larger portion compared to what they have now.
To be honest, the PNG Ports should have made more consultation with the landowners.
Also under the agreement, the landowner company equipment will be sold to ICTSI, with the money from the sales going to investments as part of the landowner company's diversification. Nearly all the members of the current workforce of 500 will be absorbed by the new port operator. 26 of them will be sent to the Philippines to start training to use new technology that will be brought in.
My biggest problem is I don't want anyone to lose their jobs. And I want the landowners in Lae to get what's fair for them.
For Ryback, the landowner company, it will mean some sacrifice and creativity. Two important revenue streams will be taken over by the bigger ICTSI. Ryback will still operate, but will have to work on creating new revenue streams for itself. While for some it may be a negative, the arrangement has captured the main concerns that have been the source of disagreements and port closures.
But importantly for us, we've got to ensure that our interest is protected and those also of our workers.
There'll be no major job losses, the unions will remain, and the landowners will own more and be active participants in the Lae Port's operations. Scott Waide, National EMTV News, Lae.
On the eve of the 2018 national budget, Prime Minister Peter O'Neill says next year's money plan will be based on, quote, common sense and restraint. He says funding to big-ticket political items like health and education will not be affected, and infrastructure funding will continue. While the global economy is seeing a slow return, the government is confident of seeing better days ahead, according to the Prime Minister.
Even with the government's difficulty in delivering free healthcare and tuition fee-free education, those items will not be seeing cuts in the 2018 budget. But then, like the 2017 budget, the figures looked good in the budget books, but the delivery depended heavily on cash flow. The Prime Minister, however, is confident of nominal growth in 2018, reflecting a slight improvement in the global economy.
We are seeing an upswing in the commodity prices that is starting to rise. Oil is now trading close to $60 per barrel. Gold and copper are also increasing. Coffee and all the other commodity prices are also improving. So what we expect is a very stable environment over the coming years.
Another item that will feature strongly when the budget is handed down tomorrow is the spending on APEC, with the government looking at using it to build capacity. The PM is also indicating belt-tightening measures in the public service. Nothing specific yet, but it's something that has long been suggested by analysts, and the measures could be spread out over various sectors.
We're trying to review the structure of our debt, our expenditures, and try and improve our revenue collections.
Generally, tomorrow, the Treasurer will be speaking the same language he did at the beginning of the announcement of the 100 days plan several months ago. And this will include cutting spending, managing expenses, and rescheduling major infrastructure projects. Scott Waide, National EMTV News, Lae.
You're watching National EMTV News. We'll be back with more after these messages. Stay tuned. Welcome back to National EMTV News. Turning overseas now, Bali's main Denpasar airport has been closed due to the eruption of Mount Agung volcano. There are concerns about the danger of volcanic ash after plumbing of smoke that reached more than 9 kilometers into the sky.
The situation at Agung is there's a continuous steady eruption occurring at the volcano. It's for about 36 hours. We've been watching that the plume height get stronger, and it's actually now up to about 9 kilometers above sea level. We're not seeing that ash sort of moving too thickly towards Denpasar, but they are now reporting that there is some ashfall in the vicinity of the airport.
And Air Niugini has also cancelled today's service to Denpasar Airport. Passengers have been advised to contact their nearest sales office for further clarification. Air Niugini has apologized for the inconvenience, but re-emphasized that safety is a priority. Moving on, Pope Francis has begun one of his sensitive trips and the first pontiff ever to visit the strongly Buddhist country. And on Thursday, he does head to neighboring Bangladesh, where many Rohingya are, of course, taking refuge. The big question now is how the Pope is likely to see it and if he will actually use the word Rohingya and find peace within a military government in Myanmar.
It's a bit complicated for the Pope. He's coming into a situation where all eyes are on what's happening in Myanmar. He has already used the word Rohingya from the Vatican. I think it is clear to people here that he is in support of rights for minority groups in the country. At the same time, he is coming as a guest of this country. He has met with Aung San Suu Kyi several times already. He has a relationship with her and probably wants to try to support a kind of burgeoning democracy that is trying to form in this country. So we shouldn't expect him to come with a heavy hand and lecture. These are Buddhist leaders here. This is a predominantly Buddhist country, and he will be meeting with the Supreme Council of the Buddhists. They are very influential here. He will also be meeting with the head of Myanmar's military. That's going to be a crucial meeting because it is said that the power here is in the hands of the military, not necessarily of Aung San Suu Kyi. So a last-minute addition, actually, to the Pope's agenda is a Thursday meeting with the senior general of Myanmar's military, and that will be an important face-to-face between the Pope and the general.
And now a look at the finance news. The kina closed unchanged at $0.3115 in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, your kina was buying $0.304 $0.3955 Australian dollars, €0.2511 and 33.57 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold is trading higher, while coffee closed higher, cocoa and copper closed the day lower. Palm oil and copper closed higher, while crude oil is trading lower. And on the stock markets, the Dow Jones closed 31 points higher, the ASX 6 points higher, and the All Ordinaries 7 points higher. Here with National MTV News, we go for a break now, but when we come back, some sporting updates in Trukai Sports. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. 2 days on and Tongan supporters are not giving up, demanding a review of the potential try during the controversial Rugby League World Cup loss against England. An online petition questioned why the possible try in the dying seconds of the semi-final match wasn't reviewed. It has now reached 56,000 signatures. Yesterday, thousands of supporters took to the streets of downtown Auckland and protested into the early hours of the morning. And we'll be back with more after these messages. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports and to a prestigious night on the international rugby calendar, the great and good of sports gathering in Monaco for Sunday's award ceremony. Take a look.
Tends to do these kind of things in style with a royal seal of approval to the World Rugby Awards, honouring rugby's finest players, their coaches, their teams, and of course the best tries too. Now, many in the game felt New Zealand's star fly half Beauden Barrett would retain his Men's Player of the Year title, and that's just what he did. The 26-year-old, a key member, of course, of his country's victorious World Cup winning campaign on English soil in 2015. And in another success for New Zealand, the Women's Player of the Year award, that one going to Portia Woodman, who helped her country to the 2017 Women's World Cup title. She was also leading try and point scorer there in Ireland. And the overall team of the year, in fact, that accolade also going to the Kiwis' victorious women's team. What a night for New Zealand sport. They recorded that famous win, just to remind you, over the English in that final in Ireland last August.
And that's it for Trukai Sports. We go for a break and be back in a bit. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield. Worth doing with Dulux.
Unfortunately, we don't have the weather report for the next 24 hours, but hopefully we can have this fixed by tomorrow by the National Weather Service. Now, before we go, a quick look at our top stories for this evening. Journalist Federation condemns refugee journalists detaining. Lae Port landowners strike deal with new operator. And Prime Minister previews common sense budget. And that's the news and sport for today, Monday the 27th of November 2017. On behalf of the EMTV News team, pleasant viewing. Good night.